What's going on, sports fans, and welcome to the SuckerFree New Year's special. This is the New Year's extravaganza. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about everything that was dreadful this year in Chicago sports, but some things to look forward to in 2023. We will talk about what's been one of the worst years in Chicago Bears history. We'll also talk about 12 months of utter disappointment that has been the Chicago Bulls. We'll talk about Illinois football entering their bowl game after New Year's Day. But first, I'm going to give you the best moments of the 2022 Chicago sports year. Starting off with the top 5 best moments, I'm going with number 5, the Chicago Cubs starting the 2022 season. April 9th, they defeated the Milwaukee Brewers 2 games in a row to start the season 2-0. You thought it could have been a hopeful year for the Cubs there. Started off good, 2-0, beat the defending NL champs. Unfortunately, things kind of went south there. But it was good to see that game. Seiya Suzuki, the Cubs rookie, he started off strong, 3 RBIs. Justin Steele pitched a good game that game. And the Cubs beat the Brewers 9-0 for my 5th best moment in the 2022 sports year. At number 4, the best moment of the sports year, I am going with a moment that happened at the Bears-Eagles game. A obese and drunk Packers fan. I don't know if he's a Packers fan. He had Eagles gear on. He also had a Bears scarf on, so kind of confusing. But it was still, he was being annoying, and it was good to see what finally happened to him. We're going to watch the video here. Yeah, before this guy was talking a whole bunch of crap to all the Bears fans in the area, being really annoying and drunk, and finally he gets put in his place and pushed down about 10 flights of stairs. And you can see his ass crack there at the end. Really good moment to see there. One of the highlights of the Bears season over the past 8 weeks. At number 3, I'm going with Justin Fields' historic stretch of games versus the Miami Dolphins, Detroit Lions, and Atlanta Falcons. Even though the Bears lost all 3 of those games, that was one of the most exciting times to be a Bears fan this year. Justin Fields was breaking records all over the place. Rushing yards in a game, he broke that record against Miami. 2-game stretch of rushing yards, he broke that record. He broke the Bears single-season rushing record. One of 3 guys to have 1,000 rushing yards in a season as a quarterback, along with Lamar Jackson and Mike Vick. Those three games there, he was also passing the ball really well. Finally good to see a running quarterback in Chicago who takes pride in running the ball and has the toughness to do it as well. That was my 3rd best moment of the 2022 year. At number 2, I'm going with the Bulls beating the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 2 of the first round of the 2022 NBA playoffs. Bulls beat the Bucks that game 114-110 and tied up the series 1-1. Heading back to Chicago for Game 3. We'll talk a little bit more about that game later in the show. DeMar DeRozan had a big game, 41 points. And then Vooch and Zach also helped out with 20 points of their own. Really good to see that game. Kind of had the momentum going there on your side. A lot of people didn't pick the Bulls to get swept in that series, and they hung it and they stuck it out and won that game in Milwaukee. That was my 2nd best moment of the sports year. At number 1, I'm going with the Bears beating the San Francisco 49ers 19-10 in week 1 of this season. Bears won that game 19-10. I think we can all remember it was a monsoon. It was a really fun game to watch. Justin Fields kind of had a rough first half, and then in that second half he really turned it on with 2 key touchdowns. Defense played good. Offense played good in that second half, and you kind of thought that you had a lot to look forward to going into the rest of the season. Unfortunately, things didn't really turn out that way. They haven't won too many games since, but that game was good to see and really good for Bears fans, and that was my number 1 sports moment of the Chicago sports year. All right, we're going to go into the worst moments later in the show, but before we get into that, let's start off with some SuckerFree Bulls talk.
This is a SuckerFree Sports Talk production. Bulls talk.
The Bulls end their 3-game winning streak. It was really good to see the Bulls hit that 3-game winning streak. They beat the Knicks there on that final shot by DeMar DeRozan. Bulls are riding hot, and then they drop a game to the worst team in the league, the Houston Rockets. Rockets have the worst record. Still, I will say one thing about the Bulls. This season, they've fallen on some bad luck. Some of these teams they've played have just shot really well against the Bulls for some reason. You've seen it with the Knicks. Julius Randle's raining threes. Quentin Grimes is raining threes. And then against the Rockets, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., these guys were raining shots all night long. Couldn't miss. It's like I can't think we're falling on some bad luck here. But at the same time, it was disappointing to see Sengun, Green, and Kevin Porter Jr. have better games than the Bulls' big three and Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic. You can't really have that. You're paying these guys so much money. They're the veterans, and they're getting played out by some young guys. It's not good to see. Bulls will have 3 more home games here to finish the new year. They'll take on a depleted Bucks team tonight. Bucks will be without Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. And then on New Year's Eve, they'll take on the first place Cleveland Cavaliers. So Bulls are coming up on some tough games here. Home games, though, hopefully they can stack on some wins here and keep some momentum going into the new year. The Bears, they finished off a horrendous 2022 with a 35-13 loss to the Buffalo Bills. Bears were actually ahead in this game going into halftime. Another game where the Bears were in it, and then things kind of fell apart there in the second half. This defense is just too much to overcome again. Not a lot of storylines here. Kind of what we expected going into that game. Nobody really thought the Bears would win that game, but still. Culture of losing continues. They're going to have to turn something around here. One good note from that game, if you're a draft guy, is the Houston Texans. They lost to the Tennessee Titans. So the Bears are in contention for that first overall pick now. I don't really get into that draft stuff with trying to maneuver in for the first pick. But if Houston loses another game coming up here, or if they win another game against the Jaguars or the Saints, then the Bears will take that number 1 pick. So that's something to watch out for here. Bears move on to play the Detroit Lions on New Year's Day. Despite popular opinion, I think the Bears should go after and win this game. I'm rooting for the Bears to win. Bears need to change the culture of losing around Hallis Hall. They must do that. You can't keep losing these games. 8 games in a row now. It's been terrible to watch. It's not been fun for Bears fans to watch. We need to see a win here. This is a winnable game. Lions are coming off a really poor game against the Carolina Panthers. They gave up a ton of rushing yards. We've seen the Bears put up a ton of rushing yards this year. So we'll see what happens in this game. But I like the Bears to win this game 24-17. And it would be also nice to see Justin Fields take a next step as a passer. We kind of saw it last week against the Bills. He couldn't get the rushing game going, and it kind of affected his passing game as well. Let's see him pick it up here a little bit, get some easy completions, and push that ball downfield like he was doing in those 3-game stretch against Miami, Atlanta, and Detroit. Another question some Bears fans are having this week is, should the Bears rest Justin Fields for the rest of the season, sit him down, and avoid injury? I think that's a bad move. I don't really subscribe to that way of thinking. Like I said, Bears got to change the culture of losing here. Justin Fields is your best player. You still want to see what he's going to be these next few years. Put him out there the next few games. I'm pretty confident that Matt Eberflus and the Bears staff will do that. And I like the Bears to win this game. I want to talk a little bit about what to expect in the 2023 NFL season from the Chicago Bears. Like I said, it's been a really bad year to be a Bears fan. But I think the Bears will turn the tide coming up in 2023. I think they make some big moves in the draft this year. I think if they get one of those top 2 picks, they end up trading back, acquiring some more picks, whether it's this year or next year, getting another second-round pick, possibly getting another first-round pick. There's a lot of teams with multiple first-round picks. And I think the Bears add some defensive players and make some really real improvements here in 2024 and 2023, and make the improvements on the field and start seeing some wins. And hopefully you can see a Bears playoff team, if not next year, in 2024. And I think Justin Fields takes the next step in his career and solidifies himself as the Bears' future at quarterback. So there's some optimism for you for 2023. It's been a bad 2022. And with that, let's look at the top 5 worst moments of the 2022 Chicago sports year. Starting with number 5, Zach LaVine signs his max contract on July 9th, 2022 to stay with the Bulls for 5 more seasons. I'm putting this as one of the worst moments because it was one of the worst signings in Chicago Bulls history, in my opinion. As soon as he signed that contract, he became one of the most overpaid players in sports. You've seen it this year. He has refused to take over any game. He had the one game with 41 points, but besides that, he isn't the leader on this team. You see him out there smiling all the time, having a good time, not taking pride in his work, not taking pride in being the highest paid player on this team. DeMar has to be that guy, and it should be Zach LaVine. I think Zach LaVine signing that max contract was one of the worst moments of the 2022 sports year for Chicago. At number 4, I'm going a little college here. Illinois football loses to Purdue on November 12th, 2022, and loses their chance to hold a part of that Big Ten title and go to that Big Ten title game in Indianapolis. It was a very promising year there for Illinois football. I was talking about them week in and week out. They beat Wisconsin. They beat Iowa. They hadn't done that since 2002. And then they dropped that game to a Purdue team that they should have beat. They frustrated me that whole game. Penalties killed them. Turnovers killed them like it had all year. And it finally culminated in that game, and the Illinois Fighting Illini lost to Purdue. At number 3, I'm going with Matt Nagy. Yes, Matt Nagy, we have to talk about him. He doubled down on stupid and started Andy Dalton in the final game of the season last year on January 9th, 2022. In the previous week, Nick Foles had dominated the Giants, put up 29 points, and then Matt Nagy inexplicably decides to start Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, in the final game of the season. He had some key turnovers there at the end of the game, and that was the end of Matt Nagy's tenure as Chicago Bears coach. Ended on a loss. That was the third worst moment of the sports year. At number 2, I'm going with this season, the Bears lost to the Washington Commanders 12-7 on October 13th, 2022. I think we can all remember this game. It was a Thursday night game. Bears offense was terrible the entire game. Turnovers. Justin Fields didn't look good. Interceptions, but they were still in it. The defense was playing strong. And on that final drive, Justin Fields had a big run. They got it down to the goal line, and then 4 plays in a row, they failed to punch it in the end zone. Finally, with that last play to Darnell Mooney, came up an inch short, and they lost to the Washington Commanders on Thursday night. It was a bad moment because that was kind of the beginning of the end there for the Bears season, as they haven't really won any games since then, and it's kind of been one of the worst seasons ever. There was kind of some hope and some optimism going into that game. They started off the season pretty hot, but after that game, it was kind of like this is the beginning of the end. Started to trade away some guys like Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn after that game. All right, the worst sports moment. It's been a lot of them this year, I have to say. But the worst one for me was Game 3 of the first round of the 2022 NBA playoffs. April 22nd, the Bulls took an absolute beatdown in their first home game in 5 years to the Milwaukee Bucks. I was at that game. There's so much excitement going into that game. The crowd was electric. And then from the first tip, it was just a total embarrassment. Bulls were never in that game. They ended up losing 111-81. Lost the next 2 games in that series. They were never really in it. But there was some optimism going into that Game 3. And it absolutely got crushed from the opening tip. Really bad to see. Nobody really played good that game, including DeMar, including Zach LaVine, including Vucevic. They were just outmanned at every level of that game, and that was the worst moment of the 2022 Chicago sports year. All right, let's get into some shit that pisses me off. We haven't done shit that pisses me off in a while.
I hate this fucking shit!
At number 1, I'm going with the NBA's unwritten rule of no meaningless points at the end of the game. I've been meaning to talk about this since that Zion Williamson dunk at the end of the game. If you didn't see that versus the Suns, he kind of threw down a 360 windmill at the end of the game. Pelicans are already up by 10 or whatever. But he threw down that dunk at the end of the game, and then Chris Paul and the entire Suns team threw a little hissy fit, got in his face, wanted to start a fight. Bottom line is, if you don't want the other team scoring points at the end of the game when you're losing, don't lose. Don't be down 10, and you won't have to watch those meaningless buckets go up. And also, at the end of the day, these guys are entertainers, and if Zion Williamson wants to throw down a 360 windmill at the end of the game, what more would fans want to see than that? It was a home game as well, so what are these guys really mad about? You never really saw this in the NBA. I kind of researched this. It's kind of a new thing coming into the 2000s where guys were getting mad about meaningless points at the end of the game. Kind of like a LeBron, Chris Paul thing. Some of these NBA veterans, these diva guys that throw a hissy fit about this. I don't get that. That's some shit that pisses me off. If you don't like it, grow up and go home.
I hate this fucking shit.
All right, the second thing that pisses me off, cold medicine. I was sick a few weeks ago, and it seems like every time I'm sick, I end up going to Walgreens and spending $50 on cold medicine. You know, this stuff like Mucinex and Alka-Seltzer and NyQuil, does it really do anything? I don't think so. You still feel the same amount of shittiness as you did before you take these drugs. Probably shouldn't be talking shit about these drug companies. I mean, if I wind up dead, you'll know who did it. But at the same time, this stuff doesn't really do anything. I think it's a scam. You end up spending $50 every time you're sick going to Walgreens. Even the stuff like the behind-the-counter Sudafed and Robitussin, it doesn't actually help you. It just gets you so high that you can't realize you're sick. I guess that's why they use it to make meth or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a scam. Don't buy cold medicine. I'm never buying cold medicine ever again. You're going to be sick for a week no matter what. You might as well put up with it. All right, that's some shit that pisses me off. Now, let's do an NFL power rankings this week. I'm doing all 32 teams. This is a 32-team power rankings, starting off with number 32, the Denver Broncos. It's been a putrid season for the Broncos. They fired Nathaniel Hackett recently, and we'll talk a little bit about Russell Wilson later in the show. At number 31, I'm going with your Chicago Bears, just above the bottom. It's the worst roster in the league, I have to say. Besides Justin Fields, there's not much to talk about on this team, and it's been a terrible year. At number 30, I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts. Been a QB carousel over there. They're on their third-string quarterback, Nick Foles. 29, Houston Texans have been playing better of late, but they still have the worst record in the league. Lovie Smith hasn't done a great job there in Houston, but he wasn't really dealt the best set of cards either. At number 28, I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals. With no Kyler Murray, that is a pretty bad roster as well. Look for Cliff Kingsbury to be out by the end of the year. At number 27, the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons have had a pretty bad year. At number 26, Carolina Panthers. Playing better of late. They've actually been playing better after they traded Christian McCaffrey, but still pretty bad roster. Cleveland Browns coming at number 25. Waste of a run game. 24, you got to go with LA Rams. The defending Super Bowl champions have had a really bad year, running with Baker Mayfield of late, playing a little bit better. 23, the Tennessee Titans. They just lost to the Texans. At number 22, the New Orleans Saints have been the victim of bad QB play all year between Jameis Winston and our favorite Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. At number 21, I'm going with the Las Vegas Raiders. Extremely disappointing season for the Raiders. They are looked at as the Super Bowl favorite by a lot of people coming into this year, and it's just been a mess with Josh McDaniels ever since. At number 20, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The most boring team to watch in football. I hate to say it. I love Tom Brady, but man, that is a hard team to watch. They can't get anything going offensively. Don't expect much from them going into the playoffs and the rest of the season. At number 19, the Seattle Seahawks. Number 18, Pittsburgh Steelers. Have been playing better of late. Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, Mitch Trubisky, when he has to play, has been playing pretty good too. So at number 18, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 17, the New England Patriots. Belichick has not been the same without Brady. At number 16, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been playing pretty good of late. Trevor Lawrence has been playing the best football of his career. At number 15, the Washington Commanders. Going back to Carson Wentz here, we'll see what happens. They could make the playoffs here going into the final 2 weeks of the season. At number 14, Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa continues to deal with concussion symptoms, concussion protocol again for him. If they're without Tua, they don't have much in their backups in Teddy Bridgewater. But still, they have one of the most potent offenses in the league with those weapons they have at number 14. At number 13, the New York Jets. Good defense and a subpar offense. When they have Mike White out there, I think they should be pretty good. At number 12, Detroit Lions. They find themselves battling with the Packers for a playoff spot. They did kind of control that a few weeks ago, but after that loss to the Carolina Panthers, they find themselves battling for a playoff spot. At number 11, I'm going with the New York Football Giants. I like Brian Daboll. He's one of my favorite coaches in the league. At number 10, I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. The Packers have found themselves turning their season around. I know that hurts a lot of Bears fans, but you have to say they've been playing better football of late. Some of those passes Rodgers was making last week only he can make. Falling right into the receiver's hands. Packers are playing much better football of late. Could see them making a playoff push here at the end of the season. At number 9, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings, the luckiest 12-3 football team ever, but they still are a pretty good team. At number 8, the LA Chargers. They have turned it around on late. I like that defense. Khalil Mack, Derwin James, get some of those other guys healthy, and I think the LA Chargers will be a problem going into the playoffs. At number 7, I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. Every year they're in it. You can't count out Lamar Jackson. That defense, John Harbaugh, really good team, really good coach team at number 7. At number 6, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals. They have been the hottest team over the past 7 weeks. Kind of the same thing they did last year after the bye week. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, we'll talk a little bit about them later in the show as well. At number 5, I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know why, but I really like this team. I just think come playoffs, they're going to be a hard team to beat. A lot of people hate on the Cowboys, but that offense, they can put up a ton of points. Defense does struggle at times, but against some of these subpar teams, they absolutely dominate. I like the Dallas Cowboys at number 5. At number 4, I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people's number 1 team a few weeks ago kind of have fallen off here these past few weeks. Yeah, Jalen Hurts was hurt, but still, they played bad against the Bears. They lost to the Cowboys last week. I still think they're a pretty good team, though. At number 3, you got to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. In it every year. Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, just seem like an unstoppable force. I would hate to play that team in the playoffs, and they could end up getting that number 1 overall seed in the AFC. At number 2, I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. Hard to believe they lost to the Bears earlier in the season. This is one of the hottest teams right now. After that Christian McCaffrey trade, they've kind of been on a streak here as well. Brock Purdy's playing well. I really like San Francisco. We'll see if Jimmy Garoppolo comes back here towards the end of the year, or Trey Lance as well. But Brock Purdy's playing good. I like the San Francisco 49ers at number 2. And at number 1, one of my first episodes when I did NFL Power Rankings, I had the Buffalo Bills at number 1, and they remain at number 1 at the end of 2022. All-around great team. You saw it last week against the Bears. They can have some slow moments, but when they turn it on, they really turn it on. Defense, offense, special teams. I think they are the best team in the NFL. All right, let's do some who's hot and who's not.
Dun, dun, da, da, da. Da, 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 da.
NFL edition. We usually do NBA, but this is the NFL edition of the segment. Starting with who's hot, I'm going with Joe Burrow. Like I said, Cincinnati has been the hottest team over the past 7 weeks. Joe Burrow is the NFL Player of the Month. The AFC Player of the Month, excuse me. He's been throwing the ball over the field since he got Jamar Chase back. That offense has been on a tear. He is my favorite for the MVP right now. Passer rating close to 100. Throwing over 300 yards pretty much every game. Completion percentage up there with all of them in the league. It'll be between him, Mahomes, and Josh Allen for that MVP, but I like Joe Burrow to take that, and I like the Cincinnati Bengals going into the playoffs and possibly entering the Super Bowl once again. Who's not? I'm going with Russell Wilson, the husband of R&B diva Ciara. Has been hearing it from football fans all year long. You kind of heard it when he started the season with that Broncos country Let's Ride thing. Fans have been giving it to him, and he has not responded. It all kind of accumulated last week against the Rams in an embarrassing loss on Christmas Day. Rams put up 51 points. Wilson looked lost, and after that game, his head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, got fired. I think Broncos are kind of stuck there with Russell Wilson for at least one more year. They signed him to that max contract in the offseason after they traded for him. Kind of looks like a bad move now. Some people are saying you should just cut your losses and cut him. I don't think you can do that. You have so much money tied up into him. But Russell Wilson is not very hot right now. All right, let's get into some 2023 NFL draft prospects for the Chicago Bears. One of the previous episodes, we did defensive line and defensive ends, and on this episode, we're going to talk about cornerbacks. Cornerback is another position of need for the Bears. We do have Kindle Vildor. He's been pretty solid here the past few years. Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon has been playing better of late, but I think you need one more guy there on the outside. I think Kyler Gordon should fit in as a nickel going forward. He's been playing better of late. Like I said, had the interception last week and had an interception against the Eagles as well. But at number one, my number one cornerback prospect for the Bears is Devin Witherspoon. If you have not seen this guy, go ahead and watch him on January 2nd playing for Illinois. This guy is an absolute stud. Former walk-on, was unranked coming out of college. He was a former basketball player, track star, and football player in high school. Like I said, I've watched this guy all year, and he's done nothing but impress. Super physical corner, plays super aggressive, plays with his hands. The one thing that you can knock on him is he gets a lot of pass interference penalties. But I got to tell you what, a lot of those penalties were bullshit. This guy is an absolute monster. He talks the talk and walks the walk. He loves to talk shit, but he backs it up on the field. A lot of people have this guy projected as an early second-round pick right now. I think he could move up into that first round. So if the Bears can pick up another first-round pick in the later first round, look for them to pick up Devin Witherspoon. I actually think this guy is going to be one of the steals of this draft. I really like Devin Witherspoon. At number 2, I'm going with Cam Smith, 6'1", 187 pounds, out of South Carolina, another physical corner. Didn't see a lot of balls thrown his way this year in the SEC. But still, very good with his hands. When the ball is thrown to him, he gets a lot of picks, 4 career picks. A lot of pass breakups too. He likes to play with that peanut punch as well. Loves to knock the ball out. He reminds me a lot of Charles Tillman. That is my NFL comparison for this guy. I really like Cam Smith out of South Carolina. At number 3, I'm going with Joey Porter Jr., 6'2", 192 pounds, out of Penn State. Comes from a football family, if you recognize that name. His dad played for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a lot of years, was a dominant defensive end. Great football guy with a lot of great character. If you talk to some guys, you'll say this is one of the nicest guys in around college football. One of the best athletes in the draft as well. He also struggles with pass interference calls, but he actually cleaned that up a little bit this year. I think he's a surefire first rounder, and the NFL comp for me would be Patrick Peterson. At number 4, I am going with Kylie Ringo, 6'2", 205 pounds, out of Georgia. This guy is a freak athlete, 4.4 speed, tackles with bad intentions. You can't see him take too many chances there at corner sometimes for Georgia. He gets beat a little too much. But still, this guy is the number 1 cornerback prospect in this draft for me. Freak athlete for his size, 6'2", 205. You can't really pass that up. He should go early first round. Maybe the Bears will be interested in him. NFL comp for me would be Trayvon Diggs. All right, with that, we also got some fun things coming up this weekend. A lot of football, NFL, some big games coming up. College football gets going here too. Got the college football playoffs. One game I'll be watching is on January 2nd. Illinois football will take on Mississippi State in the ReliaQuest Bowl in Orlando. A lot of people will be rooting for Mississippi State in this game as their head coach Mike Leach passed away. But I'll be hoping that Illinois can finish off the season on a high note. You know, we talked about some of their disappointments this year. A lot of high expectations after those wins against Iowa and Wisconsin. But hopefully they can close the deal. Haven't had a bowl game in a while. Illinois will also be without their star defensive coordinator, Ryan Walters, as he took that job for Purdue, the head coaching job. Once you start seeing your favorite team, some of the assistant coaches getting some high-level jobs, you know you got a good program going there. Brett Bielema will kind of turn the program around here. Really good to see from Illinois. Hopefully they can close out the season on a high note the day after New Year's in Orlando and beat Mississippi State. Also, in other unrelated news, the Cubs signed Dansby Swanson. Kind of happened a week or two ago. I talked about it in previous episodes. I kind of hope they sign Xander Bogaerts. He ended up signing a big contract with the Padres. Carlos Correa signed that big contract with the Mets. Some of the money they're paying these guys, it's way too much. You're mortgaging your future for some guys that are already in their 30s. I actually like this Dansby Swanson guy. The more I look at him, the more I read about him. Former number 1 overall pick. Should help the Cubs out a lot. Now we got Bellinger and Swanson to go along with some guys we had here last year. I think the Cubs turn it on here in this next year and possibly take an NL Central championship. NL Central will kind of be a down year for them, for the Brewers and Reds and Pirates. It'll kind of be the Cubs competing with the Cardinals, in my opinion. All right, as always, thank you for watching. It's been a fun year. I've had a great time sharing the show with you guys this year. Thank you for the support. Like always, like and subscribe to this video. Comment on this video. Let me know what I got right, what I got wrong. And like always, if you're going to talk sports, always keep it sucker free.